Welcome to the Unconventional Compass. I'm Josh, and today we're going to be talking about journaling, specifically my favorite journaling methods and the methods from Joe Rogan, David Goggins, Jordan Peterson, and more. Let's start with the benefits.
Some of this work has been done by James Pennebaker at the University of Texas at Austin, because he started to pioneer these sorts of writing programs, and he found that if people wrote about uncertain things, past, present, or future, so they could be traumatic things, they could be uncertain things, that their physical health improved. And he did a lot of detailed research trying to figure out why that was, and basically came down to the explanation that it was something like an uncertainty reduction mechanism at work. Because your brain is always figuring out how well situated are you in the world. How much do you not know compared to how much have you mastered? And you can tell that you've mastered things because when you go somewhere and you act, things turn out the way you want them. That's an indication of mastery. And your brain is sort of keeping track across your whole life of how many places you've been where things haven't worked out compared to how many places you have been where they have worked out. And if all those places in your past where things haven't worked out, you need to map and master. And that decreases the existential load on you, but that actually decreases your psychophysiological load. It makes you healthier. It makes you less stressed.
Wow.
So
that's such great advice. That's such great advice about reconciling with your past, because so many people just carry it around.
yeah, well, if you're thinking about your past, there's only one reason you remember the past. And that's to be prepared for the future. That's why you remember the past. And so what you're supposed to do is take the past and extract out from it wisdom. And wisdom is the ability to avoid stumbling blindly into ditches. You need to know why that happened and how you could react differently in that situation. And as soon as you do that, your brain will leave it alone. It won't obsess you about it anymore, because the anxiety-producing parts of your brain are basically trying to tell you where there are obstacles in your environment. It's like, look out, don't go there, don't go there. It's like, well, don't go there, there's fire. Well, maybe you could master the fire, right? Then you're a wielder of fire, you're not just a victim. A negative emotion that's associated with a memory is something that's crying out for mastery, and writing can really help with that. So you're reorganizing your brain when you write autobiographically. You're basically, the emotions, memories can be stored at different levels of your brain, from sort of primordial reptilian image-laden areas that are very emotional, up to finely articulated plans for your future life. Well, you want to take everything that's negative and emotional and transform that into a fully articulated vision for your future. And that frees you of your past. You shouldn't be thinking about your past. I mean, maybe if you're 80 and you're going over a well-spent life, that's a whole different thing. But if you're 30, 35, or 20, and most of the time you're thinking about your past, it's like your soul is trapped back there. And you need to free it through investigation. And the metaphysical language is appropriate, because that is, in a sense, what you're doing. You're trapped in the past. It's like you got to break free of that so you can use all your resources to move ahead into the future.
So the benefits for me, what I've noticed is it improves your mental health, sometimes drastically. I've gone through periods of depression where journaling, really deliberate, disciplined journaling, pulled me out of that and got me back on track. It's amazing for anger, for venting, letting off some steam. I would say sometimes it can be just as good as going to the gym to blow off some steam, and sometimes it's even better. For goal setting, it's absolutely S tier. There's a lot of studies. You're probably all aware of the Harvard study on the group. There was something like 3 different groups, and the group that wrote their goals out and spoke their goals every day, read their goals and spoke them every day, they were by far the most likely to achieve success. I think they ended up outearning the rest of their class by, I don't remember what the exact numbers were, but by a lot. For creativity, brainstorming, writing, and other forms of art, I would say that journaling is an absolute must. Joe Rogan, for example, as a comedian, this is something that he does. We'll go into his method later. It enhances your ability to articulate your thoughts clearly, and it enhances your problem-solving abilities as well. And that's another huge benefit for me is when it comes to problem solving. something as simple as a pros and cons list can make a massive difference. So let's go ahead and jump right into my favorite journaling methods and precisely how to do them. The first one is, it's about your wins, why you deserve to become who you envision in part, the reasons why I'm worthy of good things. And the reason why this is so important today for many people, and especially Christians, by the way, Christians, Catholics, maybe the worst of us, Christians often struggle with this, as today's version of Christianity is often very guilt-ridden. If you don't feel like you deserve something in life, chances are you're not going to get that thing. It's unfortunately the way it works, or fortunately, depending on your situation. The fact is, many of us, and again, many Christians, often deserve much more than we ask for in life. If you're a believer, you're supposed to be made in the image of God, born with God's spiritual DNA, so to speak. You're supposed to be a child of God. And if God is the God of gods, the King of kings, what does that make you? A child of God. That makes you royalty. In biblical language, that makes you the head, not the tail, above, not beneath. And you're supposed to believe that you can be and you are worthy of great things. You can be great and you are worthy of great things. You're supposed to inherit everything with Christ because, in a sense, you're worthy of everything. My version is to write out a list of all of your wins, all of your skills, your abilities, your strengths, accomplishments, and the reasons you deserve great things. Maybe you're a good father, maybe you served your country in the military, and maybe you're decorated when you went through combat, you got your Purple Heart, whatever it is. And maybe you just show up every single day, no matter what. Maybe you don't stand out as much as some, but you never give up. You're relentless, and therefore deserving in some way. Whatever makes you worthy of at least something, write those things out and treat it like a resume. That is, put your best foot forward without fabricating. You're convincing yourself that you're worthy, and what you get out of life depends in no small part on this. So I create this list, and the moment I feel like I may be slipping into that poverty mindset of unworthiness, I whip that list out and I read it until I have convinced myself, I've remembered that I am deserving. And the second part of this method is to basically remember it and speak it in the moment, say it in the moment. So as soon as you catch yourself doing something deserving, something intelligent or kind or heroic or honorable, tell yourself out loud, if you can get away with it and not sound like a crazy person, tell yourself that you are deserving of great things. And this is precisely why. What you just did was whatever it was. Remind yourself that you reap what you sow, and you just sowed seeds of courage, of diligence, of discipline, of honor, of whatever it is. Speak it out loud and let yourself know the truth that can set you free from unworthiness in this case. The cookie jar method. The way it works is you imagine you have an empty cookie jar. And inside that cookie jar, you place all of the problems in life that you've overcome, all the challenges you've risen to and defeated or hurdled, or however you want to word that. Basically, you're taking all of your accomplishments, all of your wins, and you're putting this in your cookie jar. And what you do, the way you use it is, whenever you're facing an obstacle or hardship, go back to that cookie jar. Right? Which can be, it needs to be up here at least in part, but the idea here is you want to list out everything, write everything down, and that's where the journaling comes into play. And you're going to refer back to that cookie jar to remind yourself of all the things that you've been through and all the challenges that you've overcome. And basically, it's reminding yourself hey, you are resilient, you're strong, you're diligent, you're disciplined. You remember these things that you did? Don't forget that. And it's a great method. This cookie jar serves as a mental reserve to dig into, kind of serve as a reference point, just to help you make it through whatever it is that you're facing. And that's amazing. I really like Goggins' version.
Tell them about the cookie jar. The cookie jar is something I invented. As you all know, your mom has a cookie jar, and sometimes you might have an Oreo, sometimes you might have a Chips Ahoy, sometimes you might have an oatmeal raisin cookie. You never know. It's just in there. My cookie jar has every single failure and success of my life, something I overcame. So what happens in time of life when you're stressed out and things get bad, even the hardest guy in the world, me, everybody thinks, and I think I'm the hardest guy in the world. You got to believe that. You got to believe you are something. I will, in my mind, reach into my cookie jar, and sometimes you forget how hard you are in times of need. Because you're stressed, but you forget, I'm a fucking Navy SEAL, I'm a Ranger, I'm this and that, but you forget all that because your life sucks. I calm down, take that 1 second, get control of my life, reach in the cookie jar. Well, you got called nigger your whole life, and you're now the only person in history to do this, and this. Put it back in the cookie jar, reset my mind. You have to remind yourself of how badass you really are in times of need.
Next up, we have the stream of consciousness. Stream of consciousness journaling or kickstart journaling. The method is pretty straightforward. It's simple. Basically, you whip out your notepad or your Google Doc or your Evernote, like I do, or whatever it is that you use, and you write. Literally anything. Some people like to set a timer for 5 minutes or 10 minutes or whatever it is. Some people like to write until they've written 3 pages, something like that. I've been doing this for a pretty long time. At this point, I just know, I know when I'm done. I know when I've done enough, and I probably spend around 5 to 10 minutes, usually in the morning, just writing out my thoughts. And that's what you do. You just write every single thought as you have it. Every time you get a new thought, you jot it down as it comes to you, right? It might be words, it might be images, whatever it is. Different people think differently. Just get it all out on paper. This gets your neurons firing and the juices flowing. It really clears your mind and helps you think ahead and get ahead of the game as well, especially when you pair it with these other techniques that I'm about to share with you. If you're about to give a speech or go on a date or give a presentation to a client, maybe you're about to go into an interview or spend some time with friends or family members that you haven't seen in a while, maybe you're not quite as comfortable as you could be with them. Maybe you're networking or getting coffee with an old friend or with a client or with a boss. Basically, this works for any social scenario where you want to rev up the engine of your mind and make it as clear and sharp as possible, so you can perform to the highest level, or even just clear your mind and sharpen it so you can have the best conversation possible with your friends or family, for example. I do this a lot. To me, it's an absolute must. So for social engagements, I write out the top 3 things that I want to speak on or say or mention or bring up. The things I want to guide the conversation towards, if possible, and the top things to ask or bring up if applicable. Here's an example. With my dad, I know that he loves theology, he loves politics, and he loves beekeeping, right? Those 3 things, chances are I could probably keep a conversation going on for hours and hours with just those 3 things, probably just 1 or 2 of those things. So that's a great thing, right? To be able to think ahead and jot down the 3 things that you think that this person that you're about to have a conversation with will love to talk about. The next part of this method is for creativity. So for work and writing, I need creativity. I'm calling on the muse, so to speak. Archetypally speaking.
Sometimes I wonder if it's just like some weird other dimensional source that comes out of nowhere.
That's what I think ideas are.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Ideas.
I think
100%.
I've been saying this for a long time. I think we should think of ideas as a life form that's trying to propagate itself. Because everything that you see came from an idea. Everything.
Yeah.
Every book ever written came from an idea, and then boom, it's a real thing. Like, imagine if ideas, because we don't know where they're coming from.
I feel like that when I write sometimes. I'm like, what the
Do you ever feel like that was like almost like a gift? Like something's giving you a gift?
Yes.
But because what I'm coming from is everybody that I know that creates things has a very similar narrative. They're like, it's coming out of nowhere. Like, I just have to be there to get it. You know, there's a thing where you're in the group, and particularly if you spend a lot of time on it and you're working at it and you're passionate about it and you're focused on it. It's almost like a muse, even if it's not real, it's still real. Because there's an accuracy to like, if you pretended that there was some God that was bestowing upon you these amazing ideas, if you focused on it, and if you led the correct life and lived the right path, then it would give you these gifts if you focused on your art form. And that would be like, if someone told you that there was a God doing that, you're like, oh God, it's so ridiculous. Well, what do you give a shit? Who's doing it? It's the same thing. It's like a God's doing it for you. It really does work.
I start with a prayer to God. Right? So I'm asking for the answers, for the best questions to ask and the best answers to give. And since we're headed into this world of the Muse, I need a dash of random, right? A hit of spontaneity. And I need to tap into those tumultuous rivers of emotion. We're appealing to the world of chaos, of creativity and intuition, to the feminine, to the animal, if you're a man like I happen to be. And I personally access that world by speaking to God directly. So to speak to God and listen and write out my emotions, I ask questions like, what emotions have I felt most recently? What strong emotions have I felt most recently? What made me feel love? What made me feel anger? What made me feel fear? Hope, pride, so on and so forth. Has anything brought me to tears or nearly so? And just generally speaking, what normally does and why? I ask those types of questions, literally writing them out sometimes, or just answering the questions as they come to me. And those are the methods. That's all I have for you for today. Thank you for watching, and I will see you in the next one.
And so we've put all that together in this self-authoring suite to help people write about their past, to sort it out in a detailed autobiography. It asks you questions about your past. It says, divide your life up into 6 epochs, and then divide each of those, that might be, say, birth to kindergarten, and then maybe elementary school, and then maybe junior high school, however you want to do it, and then to write about the emotionally significant events in each of those epochs, and then to describe their effects on you, and then to analyze how you did in those situations, what you might have done differently, what you might do differently in the future, to straighten out your past. Anyways, in these programs, the Future Authoring Program, like I said, has had walloping effects on people.
That's fantastic advice. I mean, it's just so it's so logical and it sounds so great.